Hello everyone, and welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Today, we're going to explore an emotionally charged story that deeply reflects on family toxicity, control, personal boundaries, and the choice between your birth family and your future family. This is a topic many can relate to, especially when faced with family conflicts and difficult decisions. Today's story takes an unexpected turn. The protagonist has steadfastly defended her love and happiness despite the pressures from her family. What's truly astonishing is that after all the tension, her mother calmly and unexpectedly agreed to her request. Not only that, but she also admitted that her boyfriend has indeed been rude and hurtful, something she had never accepted before. This change left the protagonist utterly shocked and confused, as she never imagined her mother would listen to and validate her perspective. Is this change truly sincere? Can their mother-daughter relationship be healed? This story is not only a lesson in love and resilience, but also evidence that setting clear boundaries can help you take control of your own life. If you find this story interesting and full of meaningful lessons, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss our future stories. Let's create a community where we can share, understand, and discover ways to build healthier relationships in our lives. My mother's boyfriend over the past 15 years is the worst person I have ever met, far beyond even the worst imaginable partner for my mother. He is not only rude, but he also constantly acts as if he's the most important person, considering himself the center of every conversation. But what's even more terrifying are the toxic ideas he carries. He is openly prejudiced without any attempt to hide it, from racial discrimination to homophobia. The harsh, disrespectful words he habitually spews have shocked and outraged me and those around me countless times. Moreover, the way he communicates with everyone clearly reveals his contempt, as if everyone else is inferior and not worthy of engaging on equal terms. His tone is always arrogant and condescending, as if he considers himself smarter than everyone else. He doesn't speak to people merely to communicate, but to assert his power. The way he deliberately employs sarcastic language and a mocking tone makes everyone he interacts with feel uncomfortable, even insulted. Sadly, he particularly enjoys talking to others as if they were children incapable of thinking, regardless of their level of education or experience. These behaviors not only affect me but also have an extremely negative impact on my entire family. And for the past 15 years, I have had to witness all of this happening, with nothing more I could do but endure. His insults are not limited to strangers, they are directly aimed at my own family, openly and without hesitation. He does not shy away from hurling biting remarks, even deliberately emphasizing discrimination among our relatives. Because I had the opportunity to go to college while my younger sister did not, he shamelessly called my sister a dummy, as if not having a degree meant being inferior, as if a person's worth were measured solely by a college diploma. Those words not only insulted my sister but also filled me with anger and heartbreak, because I know that success isn't achieved by one single path. But the cruel irony is that even though I have a college degree and a respectable job in insurance brokerage, he has never once afforded me any respect. Instead of acknowledging my efforts and hard work, he speaks to me in a dismissive, mocking tone, as if I were no better than my sister. Even though I built my career from scratch and have a stable, financially independent life, in his eyes, all of that is meaningless. He even belittles the very profession I pursue, frequently making sarcastic remarks about my work, as if I were simply wasting my time in a trivial job. Not only does he fail to recognize my accomplishments, but he also deliberately devalues everything I have worked so hard to achieve, leaving me feeling deeply insulted. Sadly, this isn't just a momentary misunderstanding, it is how he has always behaved towards my family over the years, with an intolerable level of disdain and autocratic arrogance. Even worse, his rudeness and tyranny aren't limited to me or my sister, they become even more severe when aimed at my fiancé, the person I love and cherish. For years, he has repeatedly and publicly humiliated my fiancé with harsh, malicious words, as if he takes pleasure in trampling on others. Every time we meet, he deliberately unleashes insults, never hiding his contempt. He frequently calls him the fatty right in front of everyone, in a deliberate and not at all playful manner. He knows full well that those words will hurt my fiancé's self-esteem, and perhaps that is precisely why he takes extra pleasure in uttering them. But his insults do not stop there. He shamelessly calls him even more brutal names like stupid or even bastard, as if my fiancé isn't worthy of respect simply because he exists. He doesn't care how much damage those words cause, nor does he care about anyone else's feelings except his own. As if that weren't enough, he also deliberately uses a mocking tone, imitating and repeating in a condescending manner, as if speaking to a small child. He distorts his voice, drags out his syllables, and lowers his tone in a sarcastic way, as if my fiancé were incapable of thinking like a grown-up. Every word he utters is not only an insult, but also a direct attack on his self-esteem. These things didn't happen just once or twice, they have continued for 6 whole years, from the moment my fiancé and I first got together until now. Family gatherings, which should have been joyful reunions, have instead turned into periods of tension and endurance. My fiancé tried his best to be patient, to be as accommodating as possible, but he never stopped enduring the abuse. Gradually, he began to fear every family event, finding every possible excuse to avoid encountering that man. Days that should have been filled with happiness have turned into nightmares he just wants to escape. What pains me most is my own helplessness throughout all this time. I saw everything, I knew exactly what was happening, yet I never had the courage to speak up or protect the man I love. I tried to minimize his pain by letting him avoid these gatherings, but that didn't change the fact that he was still being verbally abused by that man whenever he had the chance. But now, I know I can no longer remain silent. These actions haven't occurred just once or twice, they have persisted for 6 years, ever since my fiancé and I have been together. Every time we attended a family gathering together, he had to face harsh insults, public ridicule, and contemptuous looks from my mother's boyfriend. Those insults weren't merely empty words thrown without thought, they carried clear malice, as if he deliberately intended to demean him, to mock him in a ruthless manner. At first, he tried to ignore those venomous words, hoping that everything would eventually pass. But gradually, the onslaught didn't subside, instead, it worsened with each passing day. It wasn't just isolated insults, it was a continuous, repeated cycle of abuse. Every time we met, he had to brace himself, mentally preparing to cope with demeaning remarks, harsh teasing, and challenging stares from that man. The feeling of helplessness from being continuously mocked, disdained, and treated as if he had no value has made him increasingly detest our family gatherings. Gradually, the joy of reuniting with loved ones turned into anxiety and fear. He no longer felt comfortable attending family parties, no longer looked forward to those reunions that should have been filled with laughter and warmth. Instead, every invitation to a gathering made him feel tense and anxious, as if he were about to enter a battle he knew he could never win. He did his utmost to avoid attending, not because he didn't want to be close to my family, but because he knew that every time he showed up, he would once again have to face that man's insults. Every meeting became a heavy experience, a psychological battle he never wanted to endure again. No one deserves to experience that, the feeling of being trampled, having their respect stripped away, and being treated as if they weren't worthy of being there. Anyway, I want to get straight to the point. I'm a 22-year-old girl, soon to be 23, and I'm preparing for the most important day of my life. My fiancé, who is 23 this year and will soon be 24, has made his stance very clear: under no circumstances will we invite my mother's boyfriend to our wedding. Honestly, I completely agree with him. That man, with all his rude and toxic behavior, has no place at our celebration. However, what really makes me pause is how unwavering my fiancé is on this matter. He not only opposes inviting him, but he also firmly declared that if that man appears on the guest list, there will be no wedding at all. In fact, he even said he'd rather elope than endure that man's presence on the most important day of our lives. His reasoning is completely justified. This isn't just an ordinary party or a casual gathering, it's our wedding, a day that marks the beginning of a shared life that we eagerly and dearly anticipate. No one deserves to suffer such negativity on their wedding day, and I believe everyone has the right to feel happy, comfortable, and complete on such a momentous occasion. I want my mother to understand that this decision is not a personal attack on her, but rather a way to protect the happiness of both myself and my fiancé. I hope she can view the situation fairly rather than merely feeling hurt and embarrassed. As soon as I presented my point of view, my mother not only refused to listen but turned her anger toward my fiancé. She called him a controlling person, implying that he was manipulating me and forcing me away from my family. In her eyes, his desire to have a wedding without the presence of a man who constantly insults me became a sign of domination and authoritarianism. Not stopping there, she declared outright that she would not attend the wedding. This was nothing short of a threat, as if she were pressuring me to give in if I didn't want to lose my mother on my special day. But what hurt me the most was her next statement. When the two of you break up, you won't have anyone left in this family. That was not only a bitter remark but also a complete negation of our mother-daughter bond. She not only failed to support my happiness, but she also assumed that my marriage would inevitably fail. That statement made me realize that, in her eyes, family unity exists only if I follow her wishes. If I do not comply, I will be cast aside, isolated, and no longer considered part of the family. Furthermore, she continued to belittle my fiancé, saying that none of my relatives on my mother's side liked him, that he wasn't right for me, and that we should break up, etc. She not only opposed the wedding, but she also tried to sow doubt about our relationship, as if her disapproval alone would render our marriage impossible. And she succeeded in dividing the family. My relatives on my mother's side, perhaps because they believed her or didn't want to confront her, took her side completely. I began to receive cold stares and criticisms from them, as if I were a traitor simply for not following my mother's wishes. However, I was not alone. My father, stepmother, and my half-siblings stood firmly by me. They were not swayed by my mother's words, and they understood that I was not doing anything wrong by protecting myself and my fiancé. Amid all this chaos, they were the ones who supported me, giving me the feeling that at least there were still family members who genuinely cared about my happiness. This situation has pushed me into a dilemma far more painful than ever before. My relatives on my mother's side, people I once considered my own flesh and blood, now turn their backs on me, calling me the bad guy, saying that I am heartless and unreasonable. They fail to see the issue from my perspective, not caring about what my fiancé and I have endured over the years. To them, I am merely an ungrateful child, a stubborn person who dares to challenge her own mother. Meanwhile, my father's side of the family insists that I stand my ground, insisting that I should not yield just because of pressure from my mother and her relatives. They understand that if I give in this time, it means my mother will always get what she wants by pressuring and manipulating my emotions. They advise me that I have every right to set boundaries for myself and to protect my own happiness, even if it means losing part of the family. Despite the support from my father's side, I still can't shake the deep feeling of hurt. Since this argument began, I have been in tears, feeling as if I am caught between two opposing forces, on one side, my mother and her relatives, and on the other, my fiancé and my father's family. I never imagined that the decision to protect the peace of my wedding day could result in so much criticism. And then the question keeps echoing in my mind. Am I the bad person? But looking back, I know I did nothing wrong. I didn't remove my mother from the wedding, she chose not to attend on her own. I didn't break up the family, rather, it was my maternal relatives who pressured me to choose between them and my fiancé. I wasn't the one insulting, belittling, or hurting others over the years, the one doing that was my mother's boyfriend. I simply set boundaries to protect myself and the person I love. And if that makes me the bad guy in some people's eyes, then perhaps I was never truly seen as good by them in the first place. I realize that I need to be stronger. I can no longer continue to hesitate or let my emotions overpower my reason. It's time for me to set clear boundaries, not just to protect my fiancé, but also to protect myself. I understand why I handled things the way I did, because I have always longed to maintain a relationship with my mother. In the past, she was the person I trusted most. We talked at least twice a week, and I always turned to her for advice, to share both the joys and sorrows of life. In my eyes, she was an indispensable part of me, a spiritual anchor I never wanted to lose. But now, everything has changed. I realize that I cannot have it all. I cannot both protect my fiancé and maintain a relationship with a family that continually tries to control me and disregards my feelings. I have been forced to choose. And I have chosen. I choose my fiancé. I choose the person who has always been by my side, loving me unconditionally, enduring pain for years without a word of complaint, simply because he respects me and never wants to see me in distress. I choose my future. I choose a life free from manipulation and coercion, a life where I am not forced to accept toxicity just because it is labeled family. I still hope to maintain a relationship with my mother, but only if she respects my boundaries. I will no longer endure control and imposition. I will not allow her to manipulate me with her emotions. If that means I must distance myself from some of my maternal relatives, then I am willing to accept it. Because I understand that family isn't just about shared blood, it's about those who truly love and respect you. For the past 4 years, my fiancé and I have lived about a 4-hour drive away from my family. During that time, he has hardly had any contact with my mother's boyfriend, perhaps only meeting him once or twice. But even those few encounters were enough to leave him feeling humiliated and hurt. I always made sure he avoided family gatherings because I knew that the presence of my mother's boyfriend only brought tension and negativity. However, instead of being straightforward with my family about the reason, I made up various excuses to explain his absence. Perhaps, part of me wanted to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, and to preserve something of the family that I once cherished. But now, I realize that such an approach has not helped. It has only prolonged the issue and kept me trapped in a cycle of compromise and endurance. My mother calling my fiancé a controlling person and nitpicking his faults is nothing new. In the past, she had made unpleasant remarks about him, but this time, she no longer tried to hide her true feelings. She openly and vehemently expressed her opposition and rejection of my fiancé. And that left me with nothing to hold on to. I can no longer deceive myself into thinking that she would change, that if I kept trying to reconcile, she would eventually accept my fiancé. The truth is clear, she does not respect my decisions or my happiness. Many of the things I've written here are things I've never directly told my mother, especially about my willingness to compromise. The reason I once considered compromising was not because I wanted her boyfriend to attend, but because I feared the reaction of my maternal relatives. Most of them did not see his behavior the way my fiancé and I did. They dismissed it as mere rudeness rather than deliberate abuse. Thus, I once thought that a little concession might keep the peace. But now, I no longer think that way. After hearing many objective opinions, I realize that respect is not something to be negotiated. I have no obligation to endure insults just to please others. If my maternal family chooses to turn a blind eye to the venomous words that my fiancé has to bear, then that only proves that I can no longer trust them. I am so glad that I wrote this post early. It has helped me see things more clearly and has given me the motivation to make a decisive choice. The argument with my mother is just the beginning, and from now on, this will be our issue to handle together, not just mine alone. We will face this issue together, and I will no longer let my fiancé bear any further injustice alone. Today, my mother called, and to my surprise, the conversation was very calm, without any anger or blame as I had feared. She agreed that she would not bring her boyfriend to the wedding, something I never thought she would accept so easily. Not only that, she also admitted that he has indeed been a terrible person, especially towards my fiancé. Hearing this from her left me both shocked and relieved, as it was the first time she had acknowledged what I had been saying all this time. I thanked her for making this decision and affirmed that we still want her to attend the wedding, but on one condition: we need to establish clear boundaries. I don't want the same situation to recur in the future, and more importantly, I don't want my fiancé to continue being hurt. I emphasize that this isn't just my fiancé's wish, it's my own decision as well. I want to proactively set boundaries, not merely because I'm taking his side. I made it clear that from now on, I will reduce any contact with her boyfriend, and furthermore, I want to completely sever any communication between him and my fiancé. She silently agreed, neither objecting nor trying to persuade me to change my decision. This truly surprised me, because in the past, she had always defended him fiercely. I think she accepted this because, in the end, she realized that if she did not compromise, she would lose her daughter. Although I know that everything might not be perfectly smooth from now on, this is a significant step forward, and I hope she will keep her promise. I still want to try to maintain a relationship with my mother, if that is possible. However, the prerequisite is that she must respect our boundaries. I understand that words and actions can differ, so for now, I can only wait and see if she truly follows through. We still have 18 months left before the wedding, and I know that this period will be a test. During that time, I will continue to proactively limit contact with my maternal family, not only to avoid unnecessary tension but also to protect my own mental well-being. This isn't too difficult, given that we live about a 4-hour drive away from them and only see them at most twice a year. However, I realize that the relationship between my mother and me is not simply about the wedding or her boyfriend. I am considering seeking therapy because I believe I need a more objective and clear perspective on how my mother has affected me and on how I can establish healthier boundaries in the future. Though many things remain uncertain, at least for now, I feel that I'm moving in the right direction. This story isn't just about a rude and toxic man, it is also a clear demonstration of the negative impact that toxic relationships can have on one's mental health and personal happiness. It raises an important question: should we maintain a relationship merely because of family ties, even when we know it is causing harm to ourselves and our loved ones? For years, the protagonist tried to compromise, hide the truth, and protect her mother's feelings, but that only made things worse. Unconditional submission is sometimes not the solution, but rather the reason that toxic behavior continues to occur. At some point, we must set boundaries, protect ourselves and our loved ones, even if that means clashing with our very own family. The most important lesson from this story is: family isn't just about blood relations, it must also be based on respect and understanding. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're being selfish, it's a necessary act to protect your mental health. Don't be afraid to let go of a relationship if it only brings pain. Sometimes, distancing yourself from a toxic environment is the only way to regain happiness. When faced with situations like these, remember that you have the right to choose your own happiness, and no one can force you to accept disrespect, even if it comes from a loved one. In life, we cannot control how others treat us, but we have every right to decide how we react and protect ourselves. If you're in a toxic relationship, whether it's with family, friends, or anyone else, remember that you do not have to endure it. Learn to set boundaries, be clear about what you can and cannot accept. Protecting your mental health is not selfish, it's a necessary action to maintain peace in your life. Prioritize those who respect you. Family isn't just about sharing blood, it's about those who love, cherish, and support you. Don't feel guilty about distancing yourself from those who hurt you. Have the courage to choose happiness. No one can decide your life but you. Don't let others' expectations bind you to toxic relationships. Sometimes, leaving behind negativity is the only way to open the door to something positive. If you're feeling stuck in a toxic relationship, seek help from trusted people or professional counselors. You deserve a life where you are respected, loved, and at peace.